When we talk about doors opening, the first thing we must understand is that God's timing is not our timing. This truth may sound simple, but it cuts deep when you're in the middle of a long wait. Because let's be honest, waiting stretches us in ways we don't want to be stretched. It unsettles our hearts. It tests our patience. And it exposes the part of us that would rather control life than trust God with it. We live in a culture of instant gratification where everything is about speed, convenience, and now. But God doesn't operate on our clocks, and He's not pressured by our deadlines. His timetable is rooted in eternity, not urgency. That means what feels like delay in your life is often divine alignment in His plan. Think about if God gave you everything you wanted the moment you asked for it. You would never grow into the person you need to be to sustain it. Sometimes the very thing we think we're ready for would crush us if it came too soon. That job, that relationship, that opportunity, it looks good, it feels right. But if the timing is wrong, the blessing becomes a burden. That's why God holds back until your character, your faith, and your resilience are strong enough to carry what He is about to release. His waiting is not punishment, it is preparation. We often confuse silence with absence. But silence can be the loudest evidence that God is working behind the scenes. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean heaven is still. There are times when God is rearranging people, orchestrating events, and aligning circumstances to make sure that when the door does open, it leads you to a place that will not only bless you, but also expand His purpose through you. Waiting is never wasted when it's in the hands of a God who knows the end from the beginning. Psychologically, waiting confronts the impatience wired into our human nature. The mind craves closure. It wants resolution and certainty. Waiting, on the other hand, is an unresolved tension. It feels like a question mark hanging over your soul. And yet, that very tension is what builds endurance. Just as muscles are torn and rebuilt stronger under the strain of resistance. The spirit is stretched and strengthened in the crucible of waiting. Every day you wait with trust is a day your faith deepens beyond feelings, beyond sight, into the substance of conviction. Philosophically, timing is the hinge between possibility and destiny. Opportunity without timing is just potential unrealized. Timing gives weight to action. It transforms a mere idea into a life-changing reality. If you move too early, you forfeit the fullness of what God prepared. If you move too late, you miss the window entirely. That's why trusting God's timing is not passive resignation. It is active faith. It is learning to rest in the fact that the one who controls the seasons also controls the rhythm of your life. Look at Scripture. Abraham waited 25 years for the son God promised. Joseph waited 13 years in slavery and prison before stepping into the palace. Even Jesus waited 30 years before launching His public ministry. If the Son of God Himself did not rush His moment, why should we? God's promises are always tied to timing, and His timing is always tied to purpose. The door opens when the moment is ripe, when the season is full, and when the lesson has been learned. So if you're in the waiting right now, hear me clearly. God has not forgotten you. The door you have been praying for is already crafted, already prepared, already set in place. But God will not open it 1 second before you are ready to walk through it without stumbling. You may be ready in desire, but He is making you ready in character. You may be ready in longing, but He is making you ready in endurance. And when that readiness meets His timing, nothing in hell or on earth can stop that door from swinging wide. Don't despise the waiting. Don't curse the silence. Don't mistake the delay for denial. Trust the one who holds time in His hands, because when His clock strikes, you won't just walk into a new season. You'll step into the fulfillment of something that has been divinely arranged for your good and His glory. One of the hardest truths to embrace is that sometimes the doors God closes are just as much a blessing as the doors He opens. When a door slams shut in your face, an opportunity that looked perfect, a relationship you thought would last, a dream you believed was about to unfold, it can feel like rejection. It can feel like heaven itself has turned its back. But what we often interpret as rejection is, in reality, God's protection. He is not only the God who gives, He is also the God who guards. We see only fragments of our lives, little snapshots of the present moment. But God sees the entire landscape, past, present, and future, woven together into one seamless tapestry. That means He knows the dangers you cannot see, the traps hidden beneath the surface, and the consequences that would have followed if you had forced your way through a door He never intended you to enter. A door may look inviting, but not every open space is safe to walk through. Just because a path looks right doesn't mean it leads to life. God's closed doors are His way of shielding you from premature exposure, from destructive outcomes, and from paths that would sabotage your destiny. Psychologically, this is difficult for us to grasp because the human mind equates denial with failure. We interpret every closed door as a statement about our worth, our ability, or our future. When a job interview doesn't pan out, when the business venture collapses, when the relationship dissolves, we begin to question ourselves, to doubt our identity, and to wonder if we even heard God correctly. But philosophically, rejection has a different meaning. Rejection is often redirection. It's not a statement about your value, but a signal about your assignment. God isn't saying you're unworthy. He's saying, this isn't the place, this isn't the person, this isn't the moment. Consider Joseph. His brothers rejected him, sold him into slavery, and left him to rot in a foreign land. That looked like a closed door. Potiphar's wife accused him falsely, and he was thrown into prison, another closed door. Yet, behind each rejection was divine protection, keeping Joseph from settling in a smaller story so he could step into the larger one God was writing. If Joseph had never been rejected, he would have never been positioned in the palace to save an entire nation. What looked like abandonment was actually placement. And isn't that the way God works? The relationship that ended saved you from years of pain you couldn't yet imagine. The promotion you didn't receive kept you from being stuck in a role that would have limited your potential. The door that slammed shut wasn't punishment. It was a divine shield. God was saying, I love you too much to let you walk through this because I see what you don't. There's also a deeper philosophical truth here. Freedom is not found in the absence of boundaries, but in the right ones. We think freedom means every door should be open to us. But true freedom is walking only through the doors that align with our purpose. If every door were open, we'd be paralyzed by choice, distracted by detours, and destroyed by options that dilute our destiny. Closed doors are God's way of narrowing your focus so that when the right one opens, You recognize it immediately. The waiting is hard. The rejections are painful. The silence can feel unbearable. But protection is not always gentle. Sometimes protection comes in the form of disappointment. Sometimes the safest thing God can do is to allow you to feel the sting of a closed door so you don't run headlong into something that would crush you. That's not cruelty, that's mercy in disguise. So the next time you face a closed door, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" start asking, "What is this keeping me from?" That simple shift reframes your perspective. You stop seeing closed doors as punishments and start seeing them as providence. You begin to trust that if God blocked it, it's because He's guiding you towards something greater. And here is the takeaway I want you to carry. Every door God closes is a declaration of His love for you. Don't waste time banging on what He has shut. Lift your head, trust His wisdom. And remember this, what feels like rejection is often His greatest protection. If there is one place that tests the depth of our faith, it is the waiting room of life. Everyone knows what it feels like to sit in a waiting room. You don't control the schedule. You don't control the pace. And you don't control when your name gets called. All you can do is sit there, sometimes watching others walk in and get what they came for while you're still left sitting, wondering when it will be your turn. Spiritually, that's exactly where many of us find ourselves, waiting for the door to open, waiting for the promise to unfold, waiting for God to do what He said He would do. And in that waiting, faith is either built or broken. The truth is, faith is not truly tested when everything is moving quickly in your favor. Faith is tested when nothing seems to be happening at all. It is easy to trust God when prayers are answered immediately, when opportunities line up neatly, when the path is clear. But when you're in the in-between, when God has spoken something into your spirit, but the evidence is nowhere to be seen, that's when real faith takes root. The waiting room becomes the classroom where patience is taught, endurance is developed, and spiritual maturity is forged. From a psychological perspective, waiting cuts against the grain of how we are wired. Human beings crave resolution. We don't like ambiguity. We want to know, we want to move, we want to control. When answers don't come quickly, anxiety creeps in, doubt begins whispering. Our minds run to worst-case scenarios. But that mental discomfort is precisely the ground where faith has the chance to grow. Faith is the ability to rest in God's character, even when your circumstances contradict what He has promised. It is the discipline of saying, "I don't see it yet, but I believe Him still." Philosophically, waiting is not an interruption of life. It is a part of life's very structure. Every season has its necessary pauses. The soil must rest before it can yield a new harvest. The caterpillar must linger in the cocoon before it emerges as a butterfly. The night must hold its silence before the morning breaks with light. Waiting is not wasted time. It is transformational time. It creates the necessary gap between promise and fulfillment, where preparation takes place. Without that gap, blessings arrive prematurely, and premature blessings can be just as destructive as outright failures. Take Israel in the wilderness. They had the promise of the promised land, yet God allowed them to wander for 40 years. Why? Because the wilderness was their waiting room. It was there they had to learn dependence, discipline, and devotion. The promised land required faith, but the wilderness built it. The same is true for us. The very delays we despise are often the training grounds for the strength we'll need once the door opens. Waiting also reveals the true posture of our hearts. Do we trust God only for His gifts, or do we trust Him for who He is? If our faith collapses when He doesn't move on our timetable, then it was never anchored in Him. It was anchored in outcomes. Waiting strips away those shallow foundations and pushes us toward a deeper reliance on His unchanging nature. And here's something worth noting: what you do in the waiting matters. Waiting is not passive, it's active. You may not control the timing, but you do control your posture. Do you keep praying? Do you keep serving? Do you keep growing? Or do you retreat into bitterness, frustration, and cynicism? The waiting room is not just a test of time, it's a test of attitude. It asks whether you will worship while you wait, whether you will remain faithful even when nothing feels fruitful. When the door finally opens, you'll look back and realize the waiting wasn't an empty season. It was the season that made you. It was where your roots went deep enough to sustain the fruit that was coming. It was where God shaped your character so that when opportunity arrived, you could carry it with wisdom and humility. So, if you're in that waiting place right now, don't let impatience rob you of preparation. Don't let doubt rob you of trust. Don't let discouragement rob you of destiny. Waiting is not God's absence, it's His workshop. And when the waiting has finished its work, the door will open and you'll step through, not just hoping you can handle it. You'll know you were prepared for it. Here's the thought I want you to carry. The waiting room may be uncomfortable, but it is never unproductive. If you stay faithful in the wait, you will be ready when the door swings wide.